Hey everybody, thank you for joining me today. I want to talk about photography, kind of basic photography, intro to photography. So if you've gotten your first DSLR and you have that sucker slapped over on automatic, listen in because I'd love to teach you how to shoot in manual where you can get exactly the results that you want and you're not at the mercy of the computer or the camera. This right here, the Konica T4, I have no idea what year it's from, but I think it's a 70s model. I'd have to look. But all it has on it is aperture, shutter speed, and film speed. Those are the only three controls that you have on this camera. Now, a lot of you guys didn't have the benefit of starting with film. And so your first camera was a DSLR, a digital, which looks more like this, with rows of buttons on the back, buttons on the top, buttons on the front, and even buttons on the lens itself. That's intimidating, it's daunting, and most of the people I know with their first DSLR, they tried to learn, they tried to read the manual, they tried to find some resources online, gave up and slapped the thing on automatic. You spent a lot of money on this. I would love for you to shoot and get the results you want and be able to have that creative control that automatic takes away from you. So photography really hasn't changed since this guy right here. It's been the same. When I go on shoots, the only three things that I'm worried about when I'm actually shooting: shutter speed, aperture, film speed. That's it. So I want to kind of break those down for you so you can kind of get a basic understanding, and we'll go in further depth in a later video. But right off the bat, I'll just go ahead and tell you one of the reasons I love photography, and that's because it's a blending of art and science. It's a blending of those two disciplines. I started off with studying mechanical engineering at Florida State. And the reason I chose that college is because it's basically the same thing. You're designing things, which has to do with art, and you're also having to actually create things, which has to do with the science side of it. Photography is very, very similar. So the science side, you're manipulating light. That's the most important thing, is understanding and manipulating light when you take a photo. And then the artistic side is what you actually do with your image, how you compose your subject, what you're focusing on. So to break it down really simply, the shutter speed, aperture, and film speed both have to do with art and science. The science side of all three of those is how it lets light in. It's that easy. It just has to do with how it lets light in. That's it. The artistic side of it, though, has to do with blur, basically how it controls and manipulates the blur. Now, blur doesn't sound very artistic, but that's what it is. It helps you draw the attention of your viewer to a certain aspect of your photo. For instance, let's say you're at a basketball game and you shoot Shaquille O'Neal going up for a dunk, right? Dunks the ball. You have a choice. You have an artistic choice. Do you want to capture a big giant streak going through the air where you can't see any detail, or do you want to capture him stopped in motion where you can actually see the sweat dripping off of his face? That has to do with motion blur. Because your subject's moving, you can stop him down, or you can create a streak and really exaggerate that motion. On the other side, you can do that with depth blur as well. It's called depth of field. I like to call it distance blur, just because it's a lot easier for my brain to register that. So distance blur has to do with how much is in focus before and after your subject. So in this case, the wall back here is not really that exciting. And if I had an option, then I would have shot this video at a very low depth of field or a very small distance blur, where I'm sharp, but the background's blurred. Now, if the setting was instead of a wall that my wife beautifully painted, then let's say we were in France with the Eiffel Tower behind me. I definitely want myself and the Eiffel Tower to be in focus, so that has to do with distance blur. So that's the artistic side of blur, and that is directly related to your aperture. So I'm going to stop there for today, and we're going to pick up with a video specifically talking about shutter speed. The next one will be on aperture. The next one will be on ISO, and then we'll talk about a photographer's workflow. That's basically, I've got a foolproof method where you don't have to memorize any numbers, you don't have to do any math. You literally just follow this simple workflow, and you can take a perfect photo in manual mode, 100% on any camera you got, first time, and it'll look awesome, guarantee it. So stay tuned, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.